today you might perceive me as being more powerful in some fakakta way than you are, but that's not really true. You are gorgeous. Oh my God.
Oh my
I love
God,
your
so are
glasses.
you.
I love your hair. Yay.
Yay! I love your glasses and your hair. I was like, it's like the two redheads, although I'm going a little gray.
I got to keep you away from my husband because I'll tell you, this is like, you're like his dream. He loves like the Bonnie Raitt, like
Yeah.
one situation. Like that's his thing.
My husband is like, now you're finally perfect. He's like, it's happening. It's all happening. Because
maybe it's like a legitimate thing.
Oh yeah. No, my husband loves gray. He loves gray. He loves older women. When we first met, we met online and he said, you're too young for me. I was 43 at the time. And he's like, you're too young. 44 is my cutoff. And I was like, I'll be 44. Oh, look at all these people. Brett, everybody is loving you.
Oh.
We got 100 people like that.
Oh my God. Wow.
Oh, that's because of you. That's because of you.
Yeah, and your million followers. So
I know it's not a million. It's not a million. I don't even understand. I was today when we were on the Breakfast Club, I was like, how do I have so many followers on here? I'm like,
because you're fucking awesome. That's why.
Because you're fucking awesome.
That has something to do with your followers. No, it's just a joy to like wake up on. By the way, like how early do you wake up in order for you to be on that thing? Like
on that one, I cannot press snooze more than once. So on Mondays, and my husband and I had a hard time sleeping last night, so it was extra hard to get up. And I have to wake up by 6 so I can feed the dogs, walk the dogs, make a cup of tea, and then get outside because my husband's still sleeping. So I can't do it inside. I have to sit outside.
Oh, right. No, that's why I've heard the nature sounds, which sound awesome.
Yeah. So everybody, if you don't know what we're talking about, Brett and I every Monday do this amazing clubhouse. At what time is it your time, New York? 9 a.m. 9:45. So 6:45 my time, and I love it. It's my favorite room. We just get to it. I love it. So I'm just going to tell everybody. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows who you are right now, but I'm just going to tell everyone, and I have it written here, so please forgive me. But Brette Goldstein is here, and she has been casting, teaching, and coaching for over 20 years. She is also, we're going to talk about this today. She talks about the special sauce. That's kind of her thing. And she's helping people find what makes you unique and different when you go in for your auditions. It's like that it factor. She has cast 5 television series, over 50 independent films, 300 commercials, hundreds of plays. She was the resident casting director at Washington, D.C.'s Folger Elizabethan Theater for 10 seasons, which, and right now she's working on 3 indie film projects in development, and she's casting commercials and industrials. And I fucking love you.
I fucking love you. Yay.
So I'm just going to like dive right in. We can go zigzag however you want to go. But I want to try and give all the actors as much information as we can.
Okay.
So, here's what I want to know. I'm just going to dive into the second question. What is your advice to actors on how to deal with rejection when you've invested and you've gotten your hopes up and then you don't get it? Is there something special that you say to people?
I mean, it sucks balls, but you can't really do 2 things at once, right? So it's like there will be something else that fills that space, and you got to trust the universe because you're not going to know what that is. I mean, this is like a little dark, but when I was in college, I mean, whatever. It was the 90s. Please forgive me. But literally, I was like, wait a minute. I'm the only one in the theater department that actually would take all my clothes off. And I smoke so much weed. How could I have not even gotten cast in the ensemble of hair? Jesus. Like, it made no sense to me. And I remember thinking, this makes no sense. This was like the one thing I knew I would get. And what happened during that time was I spent a lot of time with a guy that I was totally in love with at the time. And we went actually to see opening night of Hair, the show I didn't get cast in, but ended up hanging out with him a lot. And 2 weeks later, he got hit by a car and died. And I remember thinking, oh, that's why. Like, clearly that wasn't the first thought that went through my head, but like there was something else that took that time, where that time was special to me and valuable in a way that I could have never predicted. Had I not gotten all that extra time with Brian, I would have been rehearsing for like some musical and it would have been fine, but I wouldn't have had that time, period. So there's the, we don't know what else is going to come into that time in your life, because there might be a meant to be-ness of all of it. Also, you know, maybe it was that other person's time for that particular thing. So it is what it is. And if you dwell on it and ruminate, you know, it's just going to land you in therapy for several more hours. So I say, you know, fuck it, move on, do something fun and special for yourself. Yeah.
There is a sense of, and I think that this is beautiful. My actors who just have a sense of trusting the universe. Trusting. So it's not, they know that there's nothing you can do once you leave that room. You put it all out on the table. And to think that it should have been different is negating the current experience, right?
Right. Yeah. And there's also the letting go-ness of it all. The like, okay, is there anything I could have done differently? Maybe there was. And then you learn from that. You bring it into your next one if it applies. And you just let it go. Because I've wanted to lawyer my way back into relationships, into like jobs, like whatever it is. Like you feel like, shit, if I had only done this, this, or this. But in the long run, it's like, is this really, really going to matter 10, 15, 20 years from now? And like, you know, and I don't know. I mean, I'd be curious, maybe even just like to keep a journal of what happens in that, like during those shoot days, if it's TV or film, or like in the next 4 weeks where it would have been rehearsal. Like, is there a good thing that happened where you're glad you weren't in that room? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And I love that you said, and being happy because it was that other person's time.
Yeah.
You know, because we all are a tribe. And so, you know, if not me, then you. I used to say that when I was an actor. If not me, then you.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. And I think honestly, don't you see this, like Stacey, when you go into like a room full of us, they're all like, oh, so-and-so didn't call you in for blah, blah, blah. And then they get on the phone. They're like, Brett, why didn't you see this bitch? And it's like, everyone so has each other's backs, because it's totally, and it's unfortunate that often you have to wait till your like late 30s into 40s to see that. But for those of you watching that are in your 20s, it happens.
Yeah.
It gets to that point. It's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. You know, you and I would go out for the same thing. Look, we would walk in with the same curly hair and the glasses, right? And it's like, you know, who knows? It's just, it's the day. It's whoever's it's supposed to be, you know? Can you just tell us, I mean, I know, but how did you first get into the business? What was it that led you here?
Hot guys, Chinese food, and air conditioning. Yeah. I was smoking a lot of weed in college, and I got confronted. I mean, it was sweet, but like this lovely fellow student of mine in my costume history class, which I just showed up for like 3 times, and you had to get like a C or better in order to graduate. She said I was a waste of a big Jewish brain. Wow. And I was like, okay, fair. And so she recommended an internship program at Source Theater Company called the Washington Theater Festival. She said, just apply, because really you're a waste. And so I did, and I got the internship, and it was fine, but it was like, you know, at the time I was probably 230 pounds, and it was like shoving my fat ass into like a little light booth with a lot of mice and rats and dirt. Yeah, and I was like, and we were doing 100 plays in the span of a month in August in Washington, D.C., which is built like legit on a swamp. It's like, that's real. So I was miserable. And then I saw this woman who was one of us, at the time, of course, she seemed, you know, ancient and inaccessible, sitting at a desk, talking on the phone, which I loved, like all day long, only getting up to pee. She had an air conditioning vent, like just happened to be sitting under one. It was like blowing the back of her hair. I'll never forget, like looking at the hair move on the back of her neck as I was 2 feet away from her, sweltering. And hot guys and girls would like run down the hall and like give her alcohol and food and then like kind of sit on her lap or talk to her for a while. It was the 90s or whatever. And then they'd walk away and I was like, the fuck? And so I begged, I said, just give me one day with this bitch, one day. And I freaked out and like until I stopped fetching, they gave me the one day with her and I knew it. It was like the end of the day, I said, I'm going to have your job in 6 months, and like single white female had just come out. So she was like, you know, probably petrified for good reason, since there was a long staircase of cement stairs leading up to that office. So I can only imagine she's like, this crazy lunatic is going to kick me down the stairs. Funny enough, in 6 months, talk about meant to be, she got a full-time job teaching at Georgetown, and I got the job because it was the 90s and everyone was like, we were dumb. And I was like 23 years old or something, and I got the job. Yeah.
So what was the first thing you were casting?
I think it was, okay, it was a play. There were 4 people. Oh my God.
Remember? Well, forget it. I would never remember. I would never remember that. And then, so then at 23 years old, you are now casting shows.
Psychopathia Sexualis. I think that was the first show. And yes, I was, yeah.
Man, I am bowing to you right now because I don't remember things from yesterday. Now, you were an actress, right?
No. I mean, I did like Washington Jewish theaters, summer theater of the arts for youth when I was a kid. I was JCC plays, nothing.
Because Nakiba was like, we need a one-woman show from her, like now. And I was like, she had to have been an actress at some point. You're amazing.
Oh my, no, and you and I are so similar. Like no, you are wonderful and funny and you were an actor though, right?
Like, I was.
Yeah.
But that's why I just assumed that you must have had that in your history at some point.
I think the part of me, you know, it's interesting because I say this to actors too when and you probably say a similar thing when they have like a really fucked up callback. And I say, like, you got to understand, like on our side of the table, so many of us wanted to do that, but then we're such insane control freaks that we chose this path. So you really think about the level of mashugana behind that table and controlling. Like, it's not you, it is definitely us. And everyone's coming from a place of fear and thinking it might be their last job and all this stuff. So so actors have so much power in the room to like make that energy really nice and chill and make me feel really safe. So yeah, I mean, I remember in college, they would basically say, oh, you'll work one day, but maybe when you're 40, because the closest thing that I had to a me was probably Bette Midler. And I was like, I can't handle that. I can't handle that. And so I just didn't do it. Yeah. I also do like memorize.
Do you feel like you had a sense of what made good acting from the very start?
I think, yeah, and I think I could do it better watching people than probably myself. But I also understood, I think, some level of what I deal with now with casting that you know you can probably relate to as well. That I remember one of the things that really kind of made me so a little bit about acting was in my advanced acting class. It was like our teacher was a real bitch. He was a son of a bitch, this guy. And I think like he was also like, he was having sex with some students. It was like a whole thing.
God.
Like, yeah. And he gave me a scene from Marcia Norman's play Getting Out, where I was playing the role of Arlie. Now picture, I mean, I only lost this weight like 5 minutes ago. So picture me at like over 200 pounds, playing a 15-year-old anorexic girl that grew up in the South in a trailer. All of this. Yeah.
That's
and I
my
remember
role.
saying to him, like, huh?
That's my role.
I mean, I was like, wait, dude, like, I'm the Jewiest Jew. Like, this, it was basically this, but throw on an additional 100 pounds and big aquanetted claw bangs. And I was like, you're going to cast me as, there's nothing, I can't do this role. I can do a fake Southern accent is the best you're going to get. And that my teacher was like, well, that's acting. And I was like, not up in here, like whatever version of that in like the 90s. And it was really, that's when I knew, like, unless it's a period piece, a biopic, something stylized, it's got to be in the actor's wheelhouse. I want to see the character through their eyes. And you don't fuck up with the casting like that.
Right. And
So,
now how did you transition from doing casting plays into casting on screen?
That was more my vagina than anything else. And I didn't like, I mean, for as much as I hit on Ryan, I didn't really, although no, I totally hooked up with a guy by the dumpster at Actors Connection during I did do that, but it was just over the shirt. One time, and there was no actual sex. Just like high school, middle school making out. That was a long, long time ago. But what happened was I was basically like, I got my first taste of independent film and I was like, holy shit, wait. These are all straight boys with beards. Their beards probably smell really good. They all smoke pot, drink beer, and they don't know how to direct. They're visual people. So I get to have a voice and agency in the room. We're so different that they just like think I'm like their crazy aunt or like or sister or whatever. They don't like we get a kick out of each other. And I was feeling in theater like I was to be seen and not heard. And it's true. The director really needs, like the director needs to establish that rapport with the actors because they're the one in the room, right? With rehearsals for 4 weeks with these actors. And with the independent film directors, they were like, oh, you have an idea? You have a note? Have at it. I don't, like, God knows what they teach in film school, but like, it's not necessarily directing actors. So all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, not only are they hot, and straight men and yummy, and I don't have to hook up with them, but I like smelling them next to me. I get to work with the actors. Why have I not been doing this all along? And also, like, you know, we didn't really have the internet so much. So the whole idea of LA, I should have moved there when I was 22. But the whole idea of doing what I should have done, which is comedy, and moved out to LA, I was so East Coast and so New York and so like art that like it didn't even occur to me until I was like 38 that maybe I should have done that, but fuck it.
I love it. I love it. And okay, so the thing that occurs to me right now is one of the reasons why people like me is that I don't give a shit about what I say. I speak my truth, right? And I think a lot of people are so scared from the top line all the way down, you know, the agents, the producers, the actors, the agents, everyone's afraid of losing their job. Everyone's afraid of saying something. And I had to tell an actor today who said, well, I'm afraid because now my career is ruined. I'm like, your career's not ruined. Everybody's too narcissistic and busy. Nobody's going to give a shit about you in 5 minutes. Like, just let it go, right? And the thing I love about you is you are me like times 100, right? Like, I think I'm honest, but you are so honest. And you, this is why I'm attracted to you, because I feel like you have no fear and you just come with who you are. And I think a lot of times the mistake actors make is that they're trying to put something on to make them right for someone else. And if they could learn one thing from you, you're not even an actor. It's that you are just 100% genuine you. And isn't that what you're attracted to in the room when an actor comes in?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think that one thing that's important also is especially if you speak your truth, but it's coming from a place of love and empathy and compassion, it's okay. Like, you don't have to always sit there and second guess yourself. I mean, now it's a little different because, you know, we're in a cancel culture and there's all that mishigas or whatever. But I feel like sometimes some fucked up shit will come out of my mouth, but it's never coming from a fucked up place, really. Right. Like, it's coming from just wanting to help people and really love them. And the other thing too is that, like, I don't know. I know that as an alpha woman in bed, I want my hair pulled, my ass spanked, for real. And I feel like you can carry that in to like work in a way too, because when actors are just themselves and they bring themselves to a role. I want to see the way they process in a given set of circumstances. I feel dominated in a really good way, even if it's like a really soft, vulnerable, or very feminine role or whatever, because that actor is just right there in the moment, fully present. And I'm getting to see what makes them tick. And I lose myself in the story they're telling. And that's hot, you know? And if you're second guessing or think that there's a thing that I want to see or the director wants to see or all this stuff, like, I don't know, it puts you in your head and then you really can't do two things at once, really. Yeah.
When an actor comes in and they can't quite get what you need, what do you do? Do you take the time to work with them? And what do you do to kind of try and help them get there? And is there a point, and then the second part is there a point where you just realize they're too nervous or whatever, they can't hear you, and you just have to move on?
Yeah. I mean, and that often has to do with time. And by the way, it's interesting. I just was thinking about something you said before. Like, it's so interesting because I just want to be like, just totally open about this. Like,
Yeah.
I might seem fearless, but I'm not. And most of it has to do with working with producers. Like, there's always this part of me that, I mean, it's hard for me to control what comes out of my mouth for sure, but there is always this part of me, and that's about hard work. Like about you know, my associate who I love, Fiona McIntyre, it's like this whole thing. She kind of trained me very early in our relationship of like, you need to set up boundaries. Like, I know they're emailing you at 9:30 on a Friday night. That doesn't mean you have to immediately email them back. And there's always this fear, like my mother lives inside of me. There's always this fear of, but what if it's my last job? But what if they never hire me again? And there's just no boundaries really around, especially communication, especially with the pandemic and everything. So yeah, I get really scared too. And then it's always that balance of I need to be healthy. And then there's but isn't it like, why do I have to do this or feel like I have to do this? And you probably deal with that too, right?
I'm exactly the same. And I run a room on Friday on Clubhouse, and I specifically talk about the vulnerability of agents, because I think that you and I are given way too much power by the actors in this business, and they don't realize that we have all these insecurities and fear around our job, around the actors. I mean, the actors make our job. So if we don't have good actors, we don't have a job. And they put us up on a pedestal, but really we all need each other. We're all like this microorganism working together. And, you know, I have a lot of anxiety and fear around my job. I have a hard time not writing somebody back at 9:30, especially casting directors.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of casting directors are fucking nuts. I got married back in 2012. I did not have one casting director or one agent up in there. Like, it was, there's a lot of crazy agents too, or lazy agents, and you are neither, which is why I love you. I mean, you're crazy in all the right ways, but lazy certainly are not. But it's like there's a lot of, that's the other thing too. You have a really, really hard job, and the better, I mean, not to get dark, but the better you do your job, the more likely it is you're going to lose that client one day. Because
happened. It just happened several times. Like it happens, and it's devastating. It's just devastating. So, we cry, we get upset. You lose jobs that you wish you could have gotten. It's all the same thing. We're all human. I love that for me, I hear that you're saying, well, but to me, you are fearless. You're fearless for even just saying that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Speaking your truth, there's a fearlessness about that. When a new actor, well, did you not
go back to the question?
Yeah. Do you not want to answer that question?
No. I think that, well, it's interesting. So like, when I feel that dissonance, and I'm like, this doesn't feel, I don't believe you for whatever reason. Usually what I keep coming back to is well, what do you really think about this? Or like, what do you want? How do you want to make this other character feel? Like, what do you want the outcome of this conversation to look like if you were thinking strategically? Because I always like to do that. And I mean, what's your point of view? You, the actor, not what you think the character thinks, but I'm curious about you. Because if I'm only calling in, let's say 15 or 20 people for that role, I want to know your point of view. And then once everything lines up, that's where the authenticity comes in. When it's all like, boom, okay, now I'm seeing your perspective. It still works in the genre. You're getting the pacing right. Everything is great. But now I'm getting some real shit. And then there's all these great moments and they're not in their head anymore. And it's when they take all of that extra stuff about what they think the character would do or what they think the director wants or what I want or all that stuff. I don't go fast. Like I'm not very good in the room about cranking things out. So I try really hard because I love actors and respect their time to not run any more than 10 or 15 minutes over. But I can't, even at 10 minutes per person, that's a toughie for me.
Wow.
So,
And that's
yeah.
because you're working with them.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm not, and they're fabulous and a one-take wonder, but often especially even in a commercial audition where all of a sudden it's like, it can be 12 or 13 takes and you're like, oh my God, you're so close, holy shit. And I just want to send them the best of what you're doing. So yeah, I tend to want to like put in, that's why it's been such a interesting game changer to have these self-tapes for the past year and change, because I'm used to not getting to see this many people because I'm slow and I love working with actors and schmoozing. So then that takes time too. Yeah.
So is this because you work very much, because I am the same. When I watch tapes, like I don't just turn them in. If I feel like an actor hasn't quite gotten there, I will say, let's do this again. And the way I've tried to kind of go around that is I say, I want you to do a couple of takes, do a take for you, do a take for me. And my take is the fuck it take. That's my take. I want you to say, fuck it. I want you to throw everything out the door. And I just want you to have the conversation. And it's always the best take. Always the best take.
I love it.
Fuck it. Just fuck it. Just have fun and do it and do that one for me,
Great idea.
It's interesting because you cast very much like you are a coach and a teacher. And so how did you transition into, you know what, I'm going to start coaching?
Yeah, it is interesting, like on those days, like on the days too where you're working with like a higher budget project and you're like bringing in all the ringers, like all those New York actors that work all the time. And there's a bittersweet thing to that. It's like, oh, holy shit, I'm getting to see like some magnificence in this room. But then there's also the thing of like, I will not say a word for 8 straight hours, except I have to pee or whatever to whoever's operating my camera at some point, because it's like, you're not really adjusting certain actors. And they don't want to hear them. There's a lot of actors that don't want to hear from you anyway.
Why is that? Why are you not adjusting those actors? Do they need to be adjusted or can you not adjust them?
Good question. I think it's a combination. Now, at the age of 47, I feel differently, but I remember being 27, 28 and being with these like big macher actors in the room who they were always often pissed because they weren't necessarily the series regulars, but they were like always the recurring guest stars. Like they were the ones that, especially the like middle-aged and older white men, and they booked all of the things, and there would be this like, yeah. It's like, God forbid and they, maybe they did get it, who knows, but I was never allowed to get out maybe more than 3 words before I was silenced. And I was used to that. It's just the way that it is. It's still kind of like that, except now at 47, I can be like, that's not what I was going to say, motherfucker. Like, and make a joke out of it and, finish my thought and finish the sentence. It's not like I talk slowly or anything. So no, there's times that you feel like they are a lot of these actors too, I think, are used to, with film and television specifically, like going in for a network audition where there's an associate putting them on camera for somebody and for something, and they're cranking people out at faster than one every 10 minutes. And they're just like, cool, like we see this person all the time and they don't really offer anything. So I think that a lot of it is they're not used to this like working, and that's fine, and sometimes they're just freaking brilliant and they always do the fuck it take because they're used to having, so it's a totally different thing with certain actors because the stakes are so much lower. So they're doing that fuck it take and they're nailing it and it's amazing. And there's a bittersweet quality. I mean, one of the reasons why I got out of regional theater is because it was the same actors coming in all the time. And I was raised in the DC professional scene where if you discovered someone new, you were an amazing casting director, because it certainly wasn't about name attachments. And that never left me. So working with actors that could be a discovery for me, for the project, that makes me feel valuable and important and of service. So yeah, there's a bittersweet thing to having those Tony Award winning and nominated, you know, the people that you see all the time, all day, every day. There's like, it's good. And sometimes it's like, okay. Yeah. I like the fact that I change it up.
I find that, and this is not the course we were taking, but it's coming up for me because I do find that sometimes when I get older actors who have had success in life, they sort of stay frozen a little bit instead of moving into their next round of roles. And that's something that stops them. I'm not talking about people who work consistently throughout their entire career. There's people when they have something that they come against a wall, right? And do you feel that sometimes when somebody comes in and they have that chip on their shoulder?
Yeah. See, back in the day, it was fun because you just flirt with them a little bit. I guess I still do that. It's fine. Like, it's all in good fun. It's not really like a Me Too situation. But yeah, you just try to break the ice and shake shit up and giggle and have a good time. And
yeah,
that's where it's nice to be close to the age of 50 at this point, because I don't think I could have done that as well, or it would have been like really misinterpreted at a younger age. But, you know, yeah, I mean, you can feel that, like the anger and the frozenness of all of it and the stagnation. And I just, you know, I just want them to feel like they're seen and they're loved.
Yeah. So wait a minute, we didn't answer that question. What transitioned you into wanting to teach and coach?
I think it's because it actually kind of goes back to what I was saying before about, like, when you get those ringers in all the time, it's great because you get to be a fabulous audience member who made good choices in prep. But I don't get to be hands-on in any way. And I never had a desire to be a director. So what I noticed is I love these moments where the stakes were high, like an audition, and the actor had an opportunity to show somebody something entirely unique and themselves, even though the director was seeing the same thing time after time after time, take after take. And I could help to just break through all the shit and bring out their voice. And it was the getting an actor there, because it's so crazy and it's so easy for an actor to get caught in their heads. It was the process of being like, let's strip it all away. And it's just you and me and the reader or whatever. And like, we're just here and let's have fun and let's make this simple and easy and authentic and real and truthful. Those were my favorite moments when I could really, or like in classes, I didn't love, I mean, depends on who they were, but I wasn't getting a lot of joy from working with actors that were at like a level in their career where they were 2 seconds away from being signed by Gersh. That wasn't what brought me joy. What brought me joy were those real aha moments of someone who was just like, oh, fuck yeah. And their balls drop in that moment. I'm just like, yes, I'm glad I could be with you on this ride. That's where I wanted to be. And that lit me up and brought me joy. And that ignited my flame in a way that like just doing normal casting director shit didn't.
Wow. And so you were like, I want to help actors get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to be a catalyst for change in people's lives. And that's my mission. Wow. And I feel like the casting thing, it's been great because it's enabled me to really understand humans and understand having to do or be a certain thing at a certain time, but also like how actors can really just drop into who they really are. I feel like acting, we got into it because we wanted to step into the shoes of another human being, the skin, the soul of another human being. But what it's become in today's age, with naturalism, with audiences being as intelligent as they are, with TV being the thing, it's now become far more of discovering yourself as an actor. Yes. And if I can be part of that process, fuck yeah.
And so how long have you been doing that now?
I was doing little bits and pieces of coaching, like a little bit of marketing coaching, a little bit of like, I'll coach you on a pilot audition or something like that, kind of here and there for years. In the early 2000s, I remember doing it solidly for like a nice year or two. That was the last time I was skinny, and then I got fat again. So it was during the last skinny period.
You are not fat. Stop it.
Oh, no, like that. I'm not now. No, hopefully not today.
You're
but I
gorgeous.
was like 50 minutes ago. Thank you. But then then I just kind of put that aside for a while. And I think that it really was January. I mean, it was the pandemic, because, it was like, like I went independent right after 9/11. I think that so many of us make these, it sounds like a cliche, but we make these huge decisions at a point where we're like, well, fuck, that happened,
yes.
right? So
yes.
For me, like that 9/11-ish thing of the pandemic, I know that sounds terrible, but it's like, it's that thing of, okay, this big thing has just happened. Who am I? What was I put on this earth to do? How can I be of service? Sure, I'll stick with casting, but this to me resonates much more deeply.
Well, I don't think you could have done the coaching without the casting. They go hand in hand, and you have so much knowledge now about the room and what people are really looking for. And you've seen so many actors now that, I mean, I'm not an acting coach, but I've watched so many actors now, and I grew up in the theater. And so at least I know for certain that I know what's true, right? I know truth when I see it, and I know when it's not true. So I feel like I'm an expert on that.
Well, I was going to ask you how hands-on, because I know that you really look at the tapes they're sending you before you submit them to casting. How hands-on are you in terms of the coaching your own clients even?
I don't coach them because I'm not an acting teacher, right? So I did coach one of my actors the other day, and I just went through, and she's a kid, and I went through line by line to try to explain the text. But I don't like to do that because I'm not an authority on that. I'd much rather send them to you or to another coach, but I'm very hands-on in terms of, I don't believe you. That's my biggest note. I don't believe you. It's too much, because there's just nothing better than watching a self-tape and forget that you're watching a self-tape. You're just seeing truth. And so I feel like what you're trying to do is truth, but what is this special sauce thing that you talk about?
That's the reason why I'm taking the archetypes class that I mentioned earlier, because I'm trying to come up with a better language that's shared for the comfort food of it all. I think there's this thing that we're drawn to where we watch actors play roles, and not in terms of the way the character is written, we're like, oh no, I get it. Like, I get that person has been in my life in some way. It's like, this person is accessible in the following ways, and that's the comfort food. And the special sauce is this kind of interesting little recipe of this special, unicorn fairy dust. It's more than charisma. It's more than raw talent. It's the thing that just makes you so you. Where like I could be like a walking stereotype of a middle-aged Jewish lady. But there's also this interesting thing of like, well, she actually spent a good chunk of her youth in Maryland. So there's a bit of Southern white trash in there, just a little bit. There's the very foul-mouthed thing that the girls I play mahjong with don't actually have. There's like things that make me a little different here and there. So there's like a dash of Mark Manson, and there's a dash of, of whatever there is. There's other things that give me that special sauce where I'm not just this thing that because I'm that too. Yeah. And then more. And I love pointing that out. I just feel like here's the deal. We look at each other and we're like, oh my God, you look so hot, and I love your glasses, and I love your hair, and I love the gray, and I love the whole schmagegi, and it's great. Like, we're so comfortable in our culture with being like, bitch, you look hot. Yeah. What we don't do so much is talk about the qualities energetically about each other that really pop. Each other's strengths, our talents, that thing that makes us different, that thing that makes us fall in love with you. And it's uncomfortable. I think it's probably especially for men, especially straight men. It's just not part of a lot of these moments that we share. And I want to bring that into our culture as much as possible, to be able to be like, this is why you're fucking phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody just wrote something kind of derogatory. I just want to say something. you know, we're joking around and we're saying fuck a lot and everything, but you know, this is not casting couch time or anything like that. So, you know, yeah, somebody just wrote like, who do I have to have sex with to get signed? And I'm like, nobody's gonna have sex with you to get signed. Like, go get a life, dude. Like, it's ridiculous. Now I had like a question for you. You know, I would be remiss because we've been talking, like I didn't get to hardly any of my questions.
Oh,
but
I'm sorry.
No, what are you sorry for? This has been like brilliant. This is like I'm eating it. I'm eating it. It's so good. I do want to talk about, because I know that we spoke about it in the room that we're in the morning, and you and I both were like, ugh, about inclusion, about what's happening with the Black community, and not just the Black community, but the LGBTQIA, you know, community in our business. And I do want to get to that, because I'm curious if you, I know you can't name names or anything like that, but if you could talk about how you have tried to shift things. Do you ask your bosses, hey, does this need to be Caucasian? You know, have you witnessed things that you're like now trying to actively make changes?
Well, there's things that I have seen.
Oh God, I'm already crying.
Oh my God. I mean, that where now I don't know if this person or these people could have gotten away with it in the way that, I mean, this was the craziest thing. And this was terrible. This was a commercial, not to say that it would be better if it was anything else, but it was just the breakdown, that the hero role of this commercial was an 8-year-old Black girl, and they describe her as Jennifer Hudson, like an 8-year-old Jennifer Hudson. And I was a little confused as to what that meant, but okay. I thought, okay, she's got a great looking personality. I don't know. And it didn't have to sing though, but what, and you know, anyway, there was one person that didn't look at the tapes of the initial casting, and he came just to the fitting. And I happened to be there because they had a little casting studio at their production company. So I would cast out of their studio. And I was there the day that they had already booked this girl. We had already gone through everything. I was done. I had invoiced for the job. It was done. And I happened to walk to the bathroom as this like 6'5", probably 58-year-old white man looked at the girl and said, "Who's that?" And they said, "Well, that's the star of your show. Like, she's going to be in the commercial. She's standing right there." And he looked at her and he was just like, "Oh, no, way too Black. Figure it out. Find somebody else. No, too Black." And this was said in front of her, the mother, a room full of people. And so her mom called me and she was like, "What do I do?" And I was like, "Burn it down." It was Nickelodeon. I was just like, burn it all down. Like, sue everybody.
Don't name names.
I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know. And I don't know if the guy was from the agency or like, but I was appalled. And I don't, at the time, I was frozen, Stacey, like a fucking asshole. I stood there frozen. Like, I didn't know what to do. I just stood there, and then I went to the bathroom, and I remember my heart pounding, and I didn't do anything except talk to the mother like a fucking asshole. You know, this was a long time ago, but still, there was no excuse for my silence. There was no excuse for me tolerating it. I talked to the head of the production company. But I didn't do enough. I talked to her agent, and the mother said, "How do you explain racism to my 8-year-old daughter? Like, I'm not asking you to do that, but how do I do that right now?" And I was like, I don't know how to answer that question. Burn it all down though. So it was just terrible. And do I think things have gotten better? Yeah, at least from what I can see. Do I think that things are fixed? Fuck no. And I just hope to keep continuing to be part of the solution, because things can be really bad.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I get emails all the time, like, I mean, you know, clearly nobody's doing enough, right? Clearly nobody's doing enough, or we wouldn't be having this issue still after so many hundreds of years, you know. But first of all, thank you for being brave enough to even say that story. That was a while ago, right? And do you feel like now you would feel like you could say something else? Like, do you feel like you would have more support and be able to say something?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was probably, I mean, I would say over 15 years ago. And now I feel like now I might have lost my shit. Like, I think that, which might not have been healthy for the 8-year-old either. I don't know. I'm not a mom, but at least she would have felt like somebody was fighting the fight for her.
Right.
She knew what that meant. She speaks English. Like, she knew exactly what that guy was saying. I mean, to be fair, I don't know if he was actually an executive there or what. I think he was, but who knows? I don't know. Hopefully he doesn't work there anymore. He's probably retired by now. But still, it just, now I would have freaked out. And I freaked out, but I didn't freak out to this guy's face. I had never met him before. Didn't know his name then. I don't know it now. He looked important. And it was explained to me that he was like the key decision maker that happened to be like in Aruba or some shit when that decision was made. But he should have weighed in, and there wasn't time for him to do so. So he was in total shock when he met her. And it just felt like excuses were being made. But I would never handle it like that now. And I also would not have been cool with the production company being silent about it, because, and that's the thing though, is that we all come from this place of, but what if it's my last job? But what if it's my last client? And the only way that we can get out of that toxicity that's like systemic in our industry is to be brave and, you know, fuck you when someone really deserves it, or even just a wake up call. I mean, you don't get to walk around saying too black, come on. But like, there are times too when something inappropriate can go down and you're like, look, here's the deal. My associate's really great about that with me. Sometimes, like, she's a millennial and she's smart, and she's nicer than I am, and she's Canadian, and she also like knows a lot of things I don't know, and she's not Gen X, and she's just like, hey, FYI, in like the best way. And I'll go, oh shit, I never thought of it that way. And I love that.
Yeah. And do you feel like when you're talking to your clients about the casting, are more conversations being had of how to be inclusive?
Yes. I think I've lucked out. I think that I feel like inclusion, I don't know, I feel like for the most part, I haven't had to fight that hard, not as hard as other people have had to fight. And I don't know why. I think I've just gotten lucky. But to me, it's like I mean, I don't know, so rarely do I see a role that's just specifying Caucasian nowadays. And then, yeah, if that's the case, you know, if there's a reason to ask why, like, I absolutely do. But thank God, at least I can only speak for myself. Thank God I don't have to fight for it. I mean, you've seen the change, right?
I have seen the change. I mean, I still get actors asking me all the time, you know, why can I submit myself even if it says Caucasian? And, you know, I like to see both sides of it, like, because but I, as an agent, can call a casting director and say, does this role have to be Caucasian?
Right.
An actor who's self-submitting can't do that. So on one hand, I want to tell the actor, if you feel like there's some quality in this that you are so right for, submit yourself. But the flip side of that is, if you're submitting yourself for a role and you're not the right ethnicity, the casting director is liable to think that you didn't read or that you don't respect them. And that's important as a self-submitter. You want to be really smart and strategic about what you're submitting to a casting director when you don't have an agent, because you don't have the opportunity to have the conversation with the casting director. And if the casting director is opening up thousands and thousands and thousands and has opened it up to actors, they're going to be upset. A casting director wrote to me, because I did it. I did a live Q&A about it. And she wrote to me and said, I would be really upset if actors submitted to me. and I specifically needed this to be Caucasian, and they didn't. And so then I had to go back on again, and I know, yeah, but sometimes it's integral to the story.
I'm saying, like, bitch, if that's what really upsets you, come on. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like really, you're gonna get your panties in a twist over that? Like, oh,
burn
like,
it down.
Come on, burn it down. Like,
burn
if that's
it down.
that's why, like, when people are like, oh my God, do you freak out when you get, like, if somebody gets the breakdowns illegally and you get an email saying, oh, I heard that you were casting such and such a role. It's like, really? Is that going to be the thing that, like, raises my blood pressure? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, that just bothers me that somebody took the time to even write. I mean, I guess everyone's entitled to their feelings, but you're right, though. Probably I would think, like, oh, they just didn't read it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just had this conversation. There was a couple of agents and a manager, and they're all emailing me, and there's this thing with this actor, and, you know, we're all involved. And you know what? The actor was just stupid. You know, she made a mistake, and she wasn't truthful. And it was a moment for her to learn, right? But God, there's just so much happening in the world. Why would we let some silly drama in our business, you know, when you put it on the scale with what's happening today? You know, Derek Chauvin's trial is today, right? So we're all like praying that he's convicted. And, you know, why am I going to get caught up in something silly in the business? I'm like, you know what? Learn your fucking lesson and move on. Like, why are you talking to me about this already? I'm never going to get that 15 minutes back. Like, stop talking. Over, done. So that was so great, by the way. Brette, you are fearless. You really are fearless.
I'm going to tell my therapist you said that. Thank you.
So, because you've been through a lot of pilot testing processes, right?
Not a lot, but a little. I mean, some, yeah.
Do you have any specific nugget that you would like to give for someone who is going through their first network test? Because a lot of people don't know what that entails.
Oh, I would just say they already love you. Like this,
Oh.
Because I would think like that is, oh my God. Like I can't even, I mean, I don't know, freak anybody out, but I cannot even imagine the stress. I can't.
No, with all those people in the room, sitting out there, eating your sandwich because, you know, you're just sitting there for hours, like waiting to sign your contract.
And like for the case, I mean, I would think like for a lot of people here, they've also like, they just traveled cross country for, you know, in other times for a screen test. I mean, there's just so much going on. So at that point, the best advice I'd have is knowing you already made it that far based on the work that you're doing. So like whatever you're doing is right. And just to fully focus on the person you're with in that chemistry read or whatever it is. You make it all about them. You stay fully present. If you have to look at all like the yumminess about that person, just be fully present right there. Because as soon as you start thinking about other things and the stakes of it, it's all going to go downhill. So, and then also it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like we want, because like we're not curing cancer or anything here, we want to work with people with whom we feel safe, that light up the room, that we want to hang out with in a trailer. Like we want to sit at the cool kids lunch table. So
Right.
Also think like they're watching you just interact with other people because they've got I mean, I remember getting a call from set from a showrunner who was like, as much as we appreciate so-and-so, and she's very brilliant, she's talented, and she's so funny, she's a fucking pain in the ass, and we're never gonna work with her again. Don't ever bring her in ever again for anything. And that's not the first time I've gotten that call. So yeah. That's the other thing, is that like, not only are you incredible enough to get there, you just keep being fun and awesome and incredible and cool because everyone wants to play with wonderful, cool people like yourself.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. Like you, because of Zoom now, you know, I'm getting to see some of the callbacks because they're asking actors to tape the callbacks. And there was a callback, and and I didn't say this to the actor, I wanted to, but I didn't, because I didn't, she didn't get the role. So, I'm not going to say it. But in the callback, it was so all business, and there were a lot of people on the Zoom, and there was, for me, what was missing was a little bit of ease, like just a little bit of like, we're all in this together. It was a little too, it was too business. And I just wanted her to like take a breath and relax and kind of play with them, because I feel like that's who they want to bring, in they want to bring someone who's going to come on set and play with them and create with them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there's this happy medium between going in, doing your job, and leaving. And also, if they start talking to you or giving you notes, thinking of it as a collaboration, right? What? Say it. Say it.
I just keep thinking, Fiona's probably watching this and laughing too. You guys should see this shit that happens in those chat box. Like, okay, so, all right. So first of all, there's so much horrible shit. Oh my God. So, all right. It's not like this in the room because people have to be quiet because the actor's right there and there's a camera rolling, right? But now with Zoom, you get a whole bunch of the cooks in the kitchen, and there can be a lot of them. And this is before the link even gets sent around. So all the people that are just present for the callback, they're writing the dumbest shit of all time. You guys have to understand how bad this really is. Like, and so it's whoever is giving the directions job to process all of it, like cull it down, curate it, translate it, and then make it actor friendly. And I can't imagine. I mean, you tell me, I can't imagine that a lot of casting directors are even prepared for that level of crazy, especially if they're not necessarily coaches. And a casting director doesn't need to be, they don't need to give adjustments. So like, that's, I mean, it's nice if they can, but it's definitely, there's a lot of other.
Give me an example. What's being said? Because I'll tell you one.
Okay.
They forgot to mute. And she was about to do a scene that was very dramatic, like the scene. And he goes, she's not it.
Oh, Jesus.
And she's like, and then there was another one where I saw this one online. This was not my actor, where they were like, oh, look where this guy lives. Look at his apartment. Like, out loud. Like,
oh.
What is your problem? Like, keep that in. You said that out loud. Like,
oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. Like,
oh, yeah.
Just wait till they leave the room. Give me one. I gave you 2 good ones. Give me one.
All right. So for me, and maybe because I'm more like of a control freak than maybe the people that are running those rooms, where it's like, I'm just like, okay, we don't need to be on camera, and you can, like, we're all going to mute, motherfuckers. Like, that's what we're going to do. We're going to mute. And like, and if you're really bad with muting and unmuting, just leave yourself on mute. But that's from the chat box. Now the actors can't see it, but that's because so now it's the chat box. And okay, so it'll be like this. She needs to be more sad, but happier, or like yell quietly, or like too many eyebrows, or like but it's always these like conditions, not actions. They and then, or so somebody will be like more angry, and then they'll be like more cheerful, and then the next person, like so you're getting like 20 things coming in at once. It's all happening like it is right here. Like, I have to ignore this because it's freaking me out.
I know, me too. I can't read it either. I like look down every once in a while. That's it. So
like, I'm trying to, the director and I are trying to be present for the actor, and then everyone else is chiming in on chat, but nothing they're saying is actually helpful, and it all contradicts. And there are times when but then what am I supposed to do? Again, that's where the fear comes in, because I can't necessarily say to a bunch of people who are responsible for my check and say, hey, assholes, first of all, learn how to direct actors, grow a brain. Like, it's also, they're doing their job the best they know how. And sometimes they're saying, and this is important for actors to hear.
Yeah.
Sometimes people in the industry say really dumb shit because they want to feel like they're justifying their paycheck. Like they need to be heard. They want to have a voice. And at least here on the East Coast, especially, where the culture is different than the West Coast, which is warmer all around. It might not be real all the time, but it's warmer. Yeah. Here, that's why I don't like doing panel things so much. Like when you're in the room with people and one person will give an actor feedback over the next. And at least here in New York, you get this thing of like, it's a big dick competition where somebody, if you say, you know what, you are fucking amazing, that takes courage. Because usually what happens is somebody will say something like, I'm going to give you intelligent feedback because I'm awesome and smart. And then the next person has to top that. By the time you get to person number 5, it's negative as shit. You think that you just shat the bed, but really everyone's so tied up in the way that individual panel people think about each other. It's all about egos and insecurities. It is not you. So yeah, so there's also that, like all that chat box stuff is happening because they're like, I deserve to be here and I'm saying something intelligent and I'm contributing. And meanwhile, I'm like, but there's something I can do. At least the actors don't see it. Yeah.
So I'm just going to ask you this because I'm afraid we're going to run out of time and I don't know whether we're going to come back. So knowing all of this, like if you were going to leave the actors with some kind of advice, I mean, God, I could do like 3 hours with you. Just a kernel of advice, just to stay in this for the long haul, protect yourself, you know, what would like inspire people? What would you want to say? Sorry, I know that that's lofty.
No, I mean, so just in terms of relationship with casting, always remember your power, that we really are middle management and we're so expendable. We're referred to as casting. We don't usually even have names. And even though most of my friends are actors, when I ask them who cast whatever they just got like a callback for, whatever, they normally don't remember. We are very forgettable in the process. And I'm not saying that for like a violin. I'm saying that to tell you how much power you have. The most famous I could ever be in this position is Allison Jones famous, and your Aunt Nancy won't know who Allison Jones is, trust me. But think about how big and beautiful your career can grow. Your potential trajectory is huge. And the reason why I'm saying that is because if you show up as an equal, as a peer to me, I will treat you and love you accordingly, especially when you've got the energy, the warmth, the empathy, and the chops to back it up. So I'm looking for the person where I can go, oh my God, Stacey, thank God you're here. Wow, I was waiting for this moment all day, because whatever it is, it's going to be fun, and we're going to have a good time, and we're both going to be present in this situation. Because I want you guys to know we are so scared. We're just as scared as you are. So at least our interaction, even if it's impersonal, through a self-tape, you have the ability to really brighten and change my day. So if you love this and you're put on this earth to do this, do it, and know that today you might perceive me as being more powerful in some fakakta way than you are, but that's not really true. And I love you guys, and I want you to succeed, and that's not bullshit. And yeah, you have a lot of power to really balance, ground, and play in the energy of the space.
Okay, I have a question. So there are a lot of kids who come into this industry and they have raw talent. What is the difference between someone who comes in and they have raw talent versus someone who comes in and really knows what they're doing, has taken class and is a trained actor? What's the difference? Because I find at my level of agency, a lot of times what I'm finding is raw talent. And I have to try to explain that, yes, you have raw talent, but you need to be trained. So from your side of the table, is there something that you notice when someone comes in and you're like, oh, raw talent, not trained, or thank God trained? Do you see it?
God, I really want you to answer this question, because I feel like you probably see it on a different level than I see it. Like I feel like there's often just the I don't know what the word is, like wonkiness, the you can, like, they almost feel like fish out of water in the process, and that you're not necessarily sure that they could replicate that in like the next take, or they're not. It almost feels like it's brilliant luck, but it almost feels like it lives in that space, or that they don't have the shared language that we have, or they're not necessarily like savvy around the diplomacy and politics of it all. Like there's a strangeness to all of it, but it's also really intriguing in a way.
Yeah.
I heard I was weirdly on a panel with somebody on the rare occasion I do that, who was an agent at Gersh, and she was talking about an actor who is very, very famous now, and that she really credits herself for discovering him. And she was like, it was so, just not what I'm used to. I'm used to people coming out of theater school and all this stuff. And it was one of these things where like we were really courting him. And like I was like, where do you want to go to lunch? And he was like, McDonald's, because for him, that would have been a huge treat. And he didn't talk the entire lunch. And it was, very, and, she said that she felt just, it was so palpable how uncomfortable he was. But she was like, he's also a goddamn genius. He's just going to have to get used to all these big personalities, and obviously he's there now. He's in everything. But it was so interesting hearing that story where she's like, we all knew, but he was so like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I just know that I love doing this. I don't know, what's it like for you?
Well, I feel like the example you just gave is like the genius, right? The example you just gave is the 1/10 of the 1% that gets birthed out of the womb and starts playing Beethoven, right, on the piano. It happens, but very rarely, right? So I sort of am talking about the people who I go, oh, I see it, but you're not ready yet. And nobody likes to be told that, because especially in the beginning, they believe that that's enough. And it's the mistake of the actor when they desperately want an agent. They desperately want to go out, and they're not ready. And so I know that some of those pass through to you, right? Because I talked to someone today. I said, you can go get an agent. I'm not going to rep you because I don't think you're ready yet. But I know there's agents out there that will rep you and will get you called in. And so I know that some of those pass through. And the difference for me is I watch the tapes and I go, they don't get themselves yet. They haven't quite learned their tells. So I know, or everything's one noted. So they haven't quite brought it into their body, and they're not embodying, And so I just wondered about you, like, when you get those people, do you call the agent? Have you ever called an agent and say, I love this person, but they're not ready yet?
Yes. And I don't know if I usually would say like they're not ready. I'll just say like it was a little wonky, and here's why. And usually I don't do that unless it's also accompanied by like something that also feels ego-y. Like you were saying that thing about no one really wants to be, no one wants.
They're not ready.
Right. So if there's something that happens that also feels a little strange and off-putting, then I'll call the agent. And, like I remember there was one thing I was casting. It was a TV show, and a guy who he just gotten out of undergrad, but he wasn't really ready, and he was repped by, I guess he had it was probably a BFA program. He came out of a good program and got a pretty solid mid-size agent in New York, and they pushed him, and I called him in, and he was also very intimidating looking, like gorgeous, but he's like over 6'4", and like he ripped off his shirt, and he like he didn't touch her, but he like towered over this woman he was reading with. And I stopped it right away, And then I called the agent and I was like, he just can't be ripping his shirt off and like freaking somebody out. Like she just looked at me immediately and I was like, okay, all right. And I would have cut it anyway. But yeah, there's times that you feel like, oh my God, they could be a little bit of a loose cannon, or I got one good take, but then because they're not really embodied, that they couldn't repeat what they did because they didn't feel it. They weren't really present for it. They weren't aware of it. It felt like dumb luck. Not to say that they're dumb, but they just weren't. I don't have that sense of like, oh, thank God you're here. Even if, but I usually would only call if something felt weird in my gut, like this person needs to be sat down. Because I also don't want to put you guys in a bad position too.
Well, no, I mean, people don't have time for feedback anymore, but I love getting feedback. I love good or bad because it helps me, you know? Oh God, I'm so old. I had a good question. So is there a common thread? Because I know at this point you have a group of actors in your head that you love, your go-tos, right? That you know they're ringers, and you're bringing in some new people, but you have your ringers. Is there a common thread through all of those? Is there anything that is similar with all of them?
Yeah. Two things. Well, three things. I mean, one is the obvious, like that talent and presence, and them knowing that special sauce, their it factor, what it is about that. They know what that is. And that's not a cocky thing. That's just really being self-aware and self-possessed in the best possible way. There's also, I feel seen, that they kind of know my taste and they know the way that I run a room, and they we're there together as opposed to them. It's them and then they're mishigas in their own head. Like, no, it's us. And I'm part of the fun too. And it's all playtime for all of us. So I can really breathe and relax and enjoy. And the third thing is there always is this sense of they know that I tend to like live up here as opposed to like, there tends to be this like, I have an autoimmune disease and I'm on a lot of prednisone and nobody should be on steroids full time for over a decade, but I am, motherfuckers, and that's why you get it. It's caffeine and straight up prednisone, 25 milligrams a day. Hopefully I won't die. So yeah, so they're used to knowing that even physiologically that like I live up here in a chemically way that like is just the way it is. And so there's this sense from these actors that are my ringers of like, hey babe, what do you need? How can I make your life easier today? Anything that you haven't seen so far, any thoughts you got on this thing? Especially if they're coming in like even by 11 a.m. as opposed to 10:15, where they're like, what's working, what's not working?
Do they ask you that specifically?
The ones that like that I call in all the time, they fucking do, because they're just basically like, hey, look, if you know the director wants it a certain way and that still feels like it's part of their wheelhouse, they're not going to do anything that feels inauthentic, because they're these people and they're talented and they're the ringers and they're solid about who they are. If it's not for them, it's not for them. It'll going back to the beginning. It'll go to somebody else. Hopefully they're friends with that person too, and they'll celebrate their success. So there's that too. There's that like, what do you need? And sometimes I'm just like, I just needed you.
Yeah.
And let's see. Yeah. And then there's time to play.
It's just like, I got you and I got you, and let's just dump out the paints and let's paint a painting, and let's see where it goes.
Yeah.
I wish actors could just embody that more,
Some really do.
Yeah, a lot of them do. The people who just kind of know that their identity isn't wrapped up in that particular audition. Right.
Well said. Yeah. Yeah, this is long game. This is like long-term relationships. This is like, and really just getting, like having empathy. It was interesting, one of my ringers like came out in a way about her autoimmune disease to me like about a year ago. Well, before, like it was, a few months before the pandemic. And I was like, holy shit, like we've been friends for 15 years. Like, and you've never, I mean, we're not like friends, but like professional friends. We're like, if this is an office, we're hanging out at it all the time. And like, I said, how come you never told me? And she said, because I didn't want you to think of me as a liability on set. Oh. And how could you not? And I was like, that's true. You make a really good point. Because she goes, now there's always going to be a little part of you that knows I have fibromyalgia. There's always going to be a part of you, even though you're on a cane every morning, there's a part of you that knows, or am I crossing my fingers that she'll make it? Even though I only came late to an audition because of pain once, and that was that day that she told me. There's always going to be a part of you that knows. And I said, yeah, well, true. And we need to be more out about our mishigas and that we're human beings in this industry. And also, like, I've got your back. And that is something that you've earned, that we've earned from each other over all these years of trust, talent and trust.
So I didn't know you until our breakfast morning clubhouses that we do on Mondays. So I would love to start referring you as a coach. Can you kind of tell the actors like what your style is, like what your coaching sort of is about, so that they can kind of know?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I work with both actors and non-actors, and I love all of it because whatever it is that I can help you with, where I can be a catalyst for change in someone's life, it's about really pointing out, like, my top goal is for a person to feel seen. And I want to, I mean, granted, it's totally subjective. It's my point of view, but I want to celebrate who the actor is, what about them is comforting and yet different, like the comfort food and the special sauce. And then how can you use those things to get you farther ahead in whatever it is that you want? I love strategy. I love games. I love the idea of putting the pieces together and like having a vision and then putting all the pieces together in order like to create the means to an end. And so that's what I love doing. I love radical honesty, but also with love and support. And I pretty much just want to work with actors on a session to session basis on what their real challenges are that they're facing. So it really varies person to person. And
is it audition based, or is it more like your acting career based?
Interesting. I guess it used to be more audition based. Now it goes back and forth, but most of it is more career strategy stuff. And I love all of it. I mean, I definitely will get in there and read sides with an actor and record it and, and work on, or coach them in the moment for self-tapes. I love all that. I mean, I'm used to doing that. And then there's also the bigger picture work, whether it's more like a life coaching type thing or more like a career and marketing coaching. I like that. The only thing I'm not going to do is say, like, I'm going to get you an agent and this is how we're going to do it. And like, no, like that's not, or I will make this phone call. And because I got to tell you, it is, yeah, that's a whole nother conversation for another time. But like, I don't necessarily, I want to still keep that boundary there as a coach because I am a casting director. But in terms of getting you where you need to be, where you could be more likely to attract representation, hell yes.
I love that. So you're giving, it's like you started in casting, but now you're giving in this other way. It's like you're giving your knowledge and helping people grow, whether it's for one audition or just for their career. I think that's really beautiful. And you're doing this special sauce thing that you talk about, which I really love, which is fine. I used to get taught I was in Jeffrey Tambor's class, and he would say, there's the cattle line where everyone gets the lines, they're doing the lines, and everyone is sort of doing it the same way. And he's like, no, you got to step out of the line. And I feel like that's sort of where you're coming from with the special sauce thing, which is instead of just looking and seeing what they put on the page, it's like, no, how does Stacy do this in this situation?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
As opposed to thinking, how can I make a big, bold choice so that I look like I'm doing it differently or whatever? That's a mind fuck.
Yeah, I don't even understand what that means.
Neither do I.
There's a lot of misinformation on Clubhouse. A lot of people saying things that, well, at least they're not my truth. You got to make a bold choice, different choice. And it's like, well, that doesn't tell you anything. That's why I liked what you were saying about special sauce, because the choice has to be based in truth in you, right? So it has to come from somewhere real. It's you're not just making a choice so that you book that job, you know?
I think it's like a bunch of old school acting teachers just jacking it. Like, because like it just sounds so like sexy in their opinion to be like, make a big bold choice. Like, fuck you. Because what if my choice is actually one that's very kind of specific yet small and self-protective, because me/my character are freaking the fuck out right now and just want to come out of this shit alive, like in terms of, you know, right, like, because so we avoid conflict. That's the other thing, the whole like find the argument in the scene, and it's like, really? Because frankly, for as truthful as I am, I would probably run from an argument. I don't want to get into a fight with somebody. Jesus, I would never want. I mean, ugh. Yeah.
That's the part. And that goes back to trust. That goes back to not having to show everything. People play their cards close, you know, and they don't, you know, unless the scene is written as this very big argument, you know, this is the scene where the life changes. Otherwise, everything is in the eyes, you know? It's like people think things, and you don't have to show everything, you know? I don't know.
Right.
Now I'm just like, la, 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 la.
No, well, especially too especially with film, even more so than television, like you make that scene your own because it might be littered with exclamation points. But if you in the given set of circumstances would talk right about here, especially because you're in a restaurant in the suburbs and there's 2 other people there and it's really quiet right now and it's COVID, and like that's where it lives. You don't need to hit those exclamation points, and there's no playwright sitting there scrutinizing you. You don't need to worry about it. You do you. Yeah.
Listen, Brette, I fucking love you.
I fucking love you.
I feel like I just sat down with like my family. Like, I feel like you should be my family. And I adore you.
I was thinking that I love my sister, but like you feel so much more like in terms of everything. I'm like, oh my God, you feel like my sister. Like, it's, yeah, more so than Meredith. It's funny, but I love you and I want to spend all the time with you. Yeah.
If you ever have anything that you feel passionate about, that you want to come on and talk about, I would do that with you any day of the week. I'm very passionate about demystifying the business. I'm very passionate about giving actors as much information as we can, and I would love to do this with you again sometime.
Thank you. Same. Thank you so much for having me. And
oh my God, I am so grateful and honored that you spent this time. Like, I don't even have the words. Like, you are brilliant and amazing. You're like a shining star. And I just every Monday, you weren't there one Monday and I was like, oh, where's Brette? Like, I just adore you. I wish everyone in our business was like you. I really do. We just need to like clone you.
Us. So there's more realness and more humor. This doesn't need to be so serious. And I'm glad that we take our love of actors very seriously, and we know that we need art in this world, but we don't make a whole mountain out of a molehill with this shit. But I love that you and I are very aligned in our values and our perceptions on everything. And it's rare to find somebody I feel so in sync with. And you're amazing and hilarious and beautiful and funny and wonderful. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
I just love you. You just brought tears to my eyes. I love you. Okay, we're gonna end this because I'm just like stalling because I don't want it to end, but we should end this because, you know, I have to work and I have like a million emails now. But mwah, mwah, mwah.
Mwah.
I will see you next Monday morning.
Yes.
And thank you. And I'm hoping that this is going to save. So I'll save it and I'll send it to you.
Yay. Okay.
Yay!
Cool.
Okay.
Right.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for being here.